With the mention of one name, Red Adair, so many images are conjured. One of the most familiar is the image of flames hundreds of feet in the air and a lone silhouette standing just feet from the blaze.
He just took the bull by the horns and did it, and that's how it all worked. That was one of his better traits. He was just a little short, fiery, red-headed person, and he got things done. He just whatever needed to be done, well, that's what was done.
Everybody thought he was a lot larger than he really was. You know, he wasn't a very big person in stature, but you thought he was. Well, he just always came off as real self-confident, and you know, this is how it's going to be, and you know, real loud and boisterous type person, and just enjoyed life. I mean, he pretty much always had the attitude that there wasn't any such thing as can't. You know, we'll figure this out and we'll get it done. If you can't stay. That was kind of something he kind of lived by.
In 1938, Red was hired by the Otis Pressure Control Company, his first oil-related job. In 1940, while working on a site with Otis, Red was working in the area under the drilling floor when the well blew out. The well released a cloud of natural gas that also contained a petroleum vapor similar to gasoline, H2S, a volatile mixture just waiting to explode. While everyone else ran for cover, Red Adair maintained his ground and studied the problem.
He got a lot more serious. He was a lot more cautious type person than you would expect when we were around wells. You know, it wasn't ever any kind of fear thing. It was just a serious respect for what you're doing, and if you cover all your bases, you'll come out of, you know, this eliminates a lot of chance for error.
Eventually, devising a solution, Red ran to his vehicle to get the tools to kill the blowout. His boss at the time said that it was not Red's job to close in the well, but in typical fashion, Red said he didn't know whose job it was, but someone had to do it. Thus began the legend of Red Adair. After serving his country in World War II, Red returned to his hometown of Houston and to his first love, the oil field, developing his skills with a man by the name of Myron Kinley, who some consider the grandfather of modern oil well firefighting. After 14 years with the M.M. Kinley Company, Red resigned and formed Red Adair Company, Inc. to control oil well fires and blowouts. Through Red Adair Company, Red pioneered the development of modern-day effective wild well control techniques and equipment and earned his reputation as best in the business.
People liked him, oil companies, personnel liked him, and it made it a lot easier to go ahead and perfect this stuff because it costs money to do it. And if you have a liking, which Mr. Adair, everybody liked Mr. Adair, and they would get in there and help him do that. And like I say, money was a big object. Mr. Adair was an excellent salesman because he could get in there and tell the people on location what the problem was and transfer it right back up to the top of the oil companies, and everybody would agree with his decisions.
With a fairly modest start, what was to come next in the life of Red Adair would set the course for a career recognized throughout the solar system. Literally.
5, 4, ignition, GR.
In 1962, the space race was on. In the Sahara Desert, a single well had blown out and caught fire. Flames shot thousands of feet into the atmosphere. It was dubbed the Devil's Cigarette Lighter.
It gained a lot of notoriety because the astronauts, when they were first getting started, commented about seeing the fire in the desert, and that was Adair's first big claim to fame after he had left the Myron Kinley organization. So it just did a lot for the company.
And the publicity didn't stop there. Luxury watchmaker Rolex found the image they wanted to portray with their timepieces and perhaps the most recognizable photograph ever snapped of Adair.
In one of the magazines in the Houston Chronicle, but we were on a job in Mineral Wells, Texas, and his son and I asked him if we were going to get off for Good Friday, And he said, no, if you get off, it'll be because I run you off. And he was pointing for us to go back to work. And it just turned out to be a good picture that this Rolex showed up good and everything about it. So I do remember that being when that happened.
The 1960s were a good time for Red Adair. Business was booming. He was making a name for himself. And near the end of the decade, Hollywood called. Red was asked to be the technical advisor on the 1968 movie Hellfighters, starring the most recognizable public figure of all time, John Wayne.
We, as a matter of fact, all the firefighting equipment that they used, was Red Adair Company, and then we actually built the fires for him. We used our fire pumps to pump propane and some other diesel to build the fires when they burned the rig down, and that wasn't a well. We actually burned it down.
We got to participate down here at Baytown. Not really participate, but got to watch because there wasn't anybody from the company in the movie, or any of us. Got to meet John Wayne, go to some of the advanced deals where they look at the day's shooting and things like that. It was a lot of fun.
The Star and Red formed a bond and often spent time together during breaks from shooting.
He was a real down-to-earth person, and we were at this one particular boat race down at the old Bayshore Boat Club. He got off of one of the big boats, yachts down there, and stepped through the pier. Fortunately, I had the only pair of jeans big enough to fit him. They were too short, but they were big enough around. So anyway, he wore my blue jeans the rest of the day. And I handed him I was getting on the boat to get a drink, and he said, took my cup out of my hand, and he said, and mixed it out of his, handed it back to me. I took a drink of it, and it was pure bourbon. I said, whoa, what was all the mixing about? He said, I'm trying to get the ice cubes even. I wasn't mixing it. He was just, good, lots of fun. They got along real well, and I guess become lifelong friends. Mr. Adair used to go out there a lot. In California, they'd always tag up. I don't know if he ever came back here or not, but we were out of the country. I think Richard's the only one in the States when they premiered the movie here, but and I never really got to see him after the movie was finished.
Some celebrated fires extinguished by Red and his crew were the massive 1970 offshore blaze at Bay Marchand, Louisiana, the X-Tox #1 blowout in the Gulf of Mexico in June of 1979, and the Piper Alpha disaster in July of 1988.
Piper Alpha at the time and up until now, I guess, is the largest single loss of life in an offshore oil incident. It was a very complex platform that had a lot of production facilities and a lot of people on board. And they had a flash fire.
The Piper Alpha oil platform became an inferno within seconds. The cameraman who took these pictures was on board the first rescue helicopter to reach the scene. The searing heat could be felt as the helicopter closed in on the disaster zone. It was clear from the outset that those on board the platform stood little chance of survival.
It wasn't to do with any of the wells that were producing or the one they were drilled. It was a production problem that started the fire. Called Mr. Adair and said, we need your help. We want you personally and bring whatever you need, but we want you to come to it. I think we were in New Orleans when it happened anyway. We came back to Houston, got our stuff together, and chartered a plane to Aberdeen, and then went offshore to. They had another vessel already on site called the Theros, which is a semi-submersible firefighting vessel. So we had a base of operations to start with, and we had to remove all that debris so we could get to the wells. And one of the worst things in the beginning was trying to identify which well was the one that was burning. There was a number of wells that the majority of them had been shut in by subsurface safety valves, but there were wells that were still capable of blowing, and they would blow for a little while and burn, and then they'd go back, kind of, we call it making a head of gas. But they'd flare up and die down, so we had to identify which was which and work our way into either pump drilling mud into them or change the valves to seal them off permanently.
But the most notable accomplishment of Red's career occurred in 1991, following the Gulf War in Iraq. Red and his team extinguished 117 of the estimated 700 burning oil well fires ignited by Saddam Hussein's Iraqi troops retreating from Kuwait. The wells extinguished by Red and his men were located in the Ahmadi Magwa and Burgan fields, the highest production fields in Kuwait.
It's the most awesome sight I've ever been exposed to. You know, you just don't think of, when you look in any direction, there's a fire. And in the Burgan field, those wells are drilled on about a kilometer spacing. So, you know, it's just a grid of fires to look at. And we bid the job and really started off with it like it would take 2 to 3 years minimum. And then we got kind of a production system going and got some help in there and wound up doing it in 7 months. Well, I was on the first non-military flight back into the country. We went over, Boots Hanson and Joe Bowden and myself and some other engineers with OGS that worked for the Kuwait Oil Company at the time. Went back in March after the invasion to look at what was left and try to assess the damage and see if what equipment might be there to work with, which was little or none. They stole everything they get their hands on. The Iraqis took it back to Iraq with them. You know, the Kuwait's always been a well-to-do country over there and had a lot of things. They stripped their cars and took all the oil field equipment that they could back to their country.
Red was instrumental in expediting the shipment of crucial supplies and equipment into Kuwait by testifying before the Gulf Pollution Task Force.
It's going to be a mean one because the ground around it is so hot. It'll turn a lot of that into glass. It'll be that hot. And when that gets in the air, it'll probably go, maybe 200 or 300 feet in the air.
How hot does that get around the fire?
It'll turn that glass and the sand into glass. It's awful hot. Mm-hmm. We don't carry a thermometer with us, so if we did that, I probably couldn't get anyone to work up there.
Although estimates of completion of the firefighting operation ranged from 3 to 5 years, this monumental task was completed in a record 9 months.
When I got to Kuwait, I was only there for the last, I think, 92 days. I stayed there. But they had already, you know, everything had settled down by that time. But it was kind of funny, though, that when we finished one well, like when we're here in the States, you know, we'd have a little celebration and then we'd just get an airplane and come on back. Well, over there, since there were 700 plus wells, when you finish one well, we wouldn't even get a truck to haul anything for us. We'd just get a hold of it with a bulldozer, go right straight across the desert and set up at the next one. I think they were on 1 mile centers, and you know, it just got to be a job after a while.
Red's career has been recognized worldwide by the news media with magazine and newspaper articles and television commentaries and documentaries. His industry achievements have made Red Adair a household name.
He loved every minute of it. He just thought that was the finest thing in the world. And surprisingly enough, Germany, England, Europe, everybody over there knows who Red Adair is. It's really surprising. And even down in the African continent, down south, you can say anything about Red Adair and they know exactly who you're talking about. Singapore, same thing.
Former President George H. Bush once wrote, "Through your undaunted courage, perseverance, and skill, you have probably saved more oil than any single individual in the world. Each time you go into a wild oil fire situation, you demonstrate again that American ingenuity, skill, and self-discipline can master the seemingly impossible. You have served your country well by your willingness to do a dangerous and important job with a rare ability. In an age said to be without heroes, you are an authentic hero." Red Adair died on August 7th of 2004. Fighting fires was always in Red's blood, and he will always be remembered in the oil well firefighting and blowout industry. He helped pioneer the industry. He built it, he expanded it, and he made it exciting.
Well, I think a lot of people over-exaggerate it, and I think we got too damn many experts in this world today anyway.